What up, everybody? Welcome once again to the FOF podcast. If you're rejoining us, thank you for your continued support. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, tonight, we're running it back. Episode number 25. We have our boy Dustin back all the way from New York. There's no teaser here. There's no nothing. We're going to put everything on the table right off the bat. All right. But as we always do, we're going to introduce our panel, our regular panel. We have, as always, that handsome devil over there, way over there this time, across Richmond, California, Mr. Somo Ramirez. How you doing, Somo?
I'm doing great. I'm super glad that Dustin offered to do the show again after the audio issues. And man, I'm really excited to have this conversation and come live and direct from Casa de Somo.
Yeah. And now I see why you and Dustin get along so well, given your background and given that man's hat.
There you go.
And then we always have our lovely D Money. D, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. Welcome everybody to our second Zoom podcast. So Dustin here is nice enough to come back on and, mediate any of the audio issues we're having. So, we have everyone in the podcast this time, and we're just excited to have Dustin.
Really excited to have him back. Once again, Dustin, thank you for your for the time that you've given again. And Dustin, would you like to reintroduce yourself, as Jay-Z said?
No, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation last time. I'm really doing it again because it was that good, and I think there's so much that we can cover again and even more. I'm a Bay Area native, grew up in Alameda, California, moved out to the East Coast to work for a company called And1 in 2000, I believe. And since then, I've worked in-house at Nike, And1, Zoo York, a couple other places. Started a company called UNDRCRWN in 2005, and then ended up kind of figuring out that for me to truly be happy in a creative space, that I needed to accomplish three things. So one was, doing art for art's sake, and kind of just getting my creativity out that way. And then also I have a studio where I do consulting for the Nikes, the Converse, Puma, LA Gear, everyone, kind of specialist in basketball and design. And then I also started a new company a couple years ago called Trophy Hunting, which is kind of the all of my experiences put into the inspiration of a whole new brand and way of running a clothing line and doing designs, and everything kind of stems from my experiences. So happy to be here, happy to talk about my journey and inspire as many people as I can, because I truly wake up every day and feel blessed that I'm able to kind of make my own schedule, work with amazing people, some of the best athletes and brands in the world, some of the best friends and people that I spend time with all the time now. So let's go.
Very well said. Very well said. Somebody want to kick Dustin off with a good question over here?
Yeah, that was a great introduction, man. Like, Dustin has done so much work, and honestly, I'm personally inspired by his artwork. And so that's why I'm so happy, giddy, some might even say, to be able to have the conversation and talk with him and really pick his brain a little bit. And so first, we see the background that he has. Let's talk a little bit about that and the maybe inspiration behind that.
Yeah, so my background is an illustration that I did maybe a year or so ago, and it was pretty much drawn from memory. It's my actual childhood bedroom, and it pretty much is the sole inspiration of what I do today. it was all the things that I liked. Like my parents were nice enough to kind of build out this space. And at the time when I was growing up, like NASA was really big, Star Wars was out. I wanted to be an astronaut till I found out that I had like motion sickness issues and I couldn't go on spacecraft like that after I saw Space Camp, the movie. So I kind of like turned that into like, I want to be a professional baseball player or basketball player. And I just like totally embraced basketball culture. And, you know, from the shoes to the Nike commercials and finding out that Wyden and Kennedy was behind a lot of the creative and researching that, and, you know, pre-Google. So, you know, I was just consuming as much as I could even from a music standpoint. So yeah, that was it. It was like I had sneakers on the ground. I was a sneaker collector then, really into like early hip hop and following even like a lot of local Bay Area, the Too Short, Loonies, E40, like all of those guys kind of helped build my DNA of, you know, my true hustle. And it's just like I couldn't have it any other way. Like I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. So I think a lot of that kind of came from seeing other people do it and kind of write their own script and not have to like follow the path.
So like, how much of it do you think you really like paved your own way, or how much did you follow maybe someone else's footsteps, get inspiration from someone? I mean, like the average person like myself would think like, how does someone even get into design really, you know?
Well, some of it is luck, I think, like just as far as like being in the right place, but being able to kind of act on the luck when it happens. There were very pivotal people that may or may not know this, but like I had an uncle who was the youngest uncle that I had, and he was going to art school, the art school that I ended up going to. And he was an amazing illustrator, like way better than I could ever dream of. It's like, he's like one of those God-given talents that like you see and it's like, okay, I can't do that. So he was that. So I used to go in there, we used to steal his markers and, you know, play with them and, you know, just kind of see his world of art. And it's just like, was totally new to me. And then in that same house, my cousin a few years later was like really good at sports and was kind of like a local basketball legend. And he, you know, he grew up with J.R. Ryder. So him and they were peers basically. So I still kind of follow them around as a little kid, and they would always have the sneakers. My cousin would have all these sneakers lined up. So like that was an inspiration. And then I had another aunt who, you know, moved to New York, lived, you know, a few blocks from where I'm at right now, and just kind of like worked retail and was kind of into like the New York art scene and collected furniture. And, you know, those things kind of basically built a lot of the things that like I was curious about and stay curious to this day about. So, you know, it really came internally from family. And then obviously the Nike commercials were huge to me. And, you know, when I stopped playing baseball, I kind of figured out like, okay, I need to take something serious. And it was art. It's like, I was like, oh, I don't have to take the SAT. Cool. I could go to art school. So, you know, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to California College of Arts, which was College Arts and Crafts back then, CCAC. And that was the foundation of everything that I do. It kind of took the inspiration and kind of gave it some structure. And, you know, the reason why I feel like I'm able to take on big clients and really work on these projects at like a high level, the same as a Wyden Kennedy or Pentagram or any of these big agencies, is because of my education in, you know, creating just design solves and, you know, really building conceptual thinking and strategy and adding that to just, you know, being around and knowing about the basketball culture and living it. So it's like, I have the best of both worlds. I have the structure of, you know, education and be able to kind of talk the talk, but then I also like live and breathe it. So, you know, you won't find anybody in this industry that could kind of do what I do from a basketball standpoint. So
I agree. I agree with that.
Very pigeonholed. It's very pigeonholed, but it's like, it's kind of one of those things where, you know, even in college, they're like, oh, you can't do everything Michael Jordan and Tupac. And I'm like, okay. And that's all I do every day. So it's kind of like, you know, everyone has a story about a teacher who tells you can't do something. Like that was mine.
Yeah. It reminds me of Juicy, like Biggie Smalls, his teacher, you know. Anyways, man, so definitely to me, the artwork is like authentic. The culture represents the culture well, in my opinion. I don't want to hog up the entire show. Jay and Diane, I want to give you some opportunities to throw some questions in there.
Go ahead, D.
I was just gonna ask, what did you, for people that are interested in, you know, pursuing something similar, and going into your field, what did you major in that helped you? Was it, because I know that there's so many like different majors at California Academy of the Arts, right? There's like textile and design, and then there you can go into graphic design. So what was kind of your path in terms of the school route?
Yeah, I like going in, I had no idea what was what. I was like, I want to design sneakers for Nike. That was like my dream. That was it. And the first day I showed up to the class, that they had people that were designing sneakers and cars, and that was like the field was industrial design, and I was totally overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, I can't do this. Like stuff was too good. I didn't think that, you know, they had been there for 4 years and had like formal training. I just thought that like these people were just like that gifted to be able to do all this stuff, and some were. So I chose graphic design because my uncle had done it. I didn't know much about it, but lucky enough at the time, like Photoshop and all the programs that people use nowadays were just kind of getting going. And, you know, there was a real focus on using those programs as tools versus the actual thing that you design with. So I had a real good education in like conceptual thinking and strategy. And that translates to all disciplines of design. So whether I'm designing footwear or a t-shirt or a poster, like it's all the same thought process. And it's like, you know, creating just the way or figuring out the way to think through design. And for any kid that's like looking to get into design, with the internet, it's great because you can just like Google, you know, the end result and kind of, you know, reverse engineer it and see what, you know, people had taken. So like for me, you know, graphic design was it, but I also in my first job got to work for a company that was had an office in Taiwan at a factory. So me going to the factory every 2 months, learning on the fly how to design stuff that wasn't just like the shoebox or a logo. It was, you know, real apparel and footwear, and, you know, it was very hands-on training. So, you know, you can get the education from all angles. I just suggest that, you know, whatever you do, kind of maximize one thing first and like get a really good handle of it. And then that should help bring on new types of design or projects that you can kind of get into. But education was key for me.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I think one of the questions that I asked previously in our first interview was that, you know, fashion design kind of falls, or usually people put that in the same category as journalism, where people say that schooling isn't necessary. So I'm glad you explained it that way, and it sort of answered that question that I was going to ask. But so on YouTube, right? So I do a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of highlight clips, and the one thing that they always ask me is, who's going to take the ship this year? Who do you think is going to take the championship this year? I think like the top 5 picks are like the Lakers, Nets, Suns. Who do you got? Who do you got, Dustin? Who should I bet on?
I'm like the biggest Warriors fan of all time. And so no one in LA will ever get my blessing on a championship. but nobody's beating the Brooklyn Nets, the NBA's all-star team.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's my pick.
Man,
so here, folks, put your money on the Nets. Dustin said so. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I want to cut though.
Yeah.
I want to cut.
Speaking of the Nets, you did design one of their jerseys, right? Which I think is, man, one of the best jerseys that they ever had.
Yeah.
But so you said earlier that working for Nike was one of your dreams. It was like the dream when you were in school and everything. And then you got the chance to actually work for Nike, work with Nike. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that felt, because man, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was my dream. Like I had just, completed 10 years of running a pretty successful streetwear company, and we were getting into our next phase. And when Nike called, so it was a big decision for me. Unfortunately, they didn't allow me to keep doing the brand when I got there because of a non-compete that they threw in at the last second. So that was, the writing was on the wall for me after that. And I realized that coming in at this stage of my career, like already had been at, a very successful small footwear brand that kind of took off and won, and kind of being around the block doing my own thing and working for Adidas and all these other companies. Nike to me was really like the final discovery phase for me as far as like my career. It's like it was the one thing that I just didn't know what the experience would be like. So, it was amazing. Like the talent that was there was great. You don't realize like how many people it takes to do one simple thing. And I think that's one of the skills that like my education like helped me, is like selling your ideas. And honestly, like my ability to communicate on why the idea made sense and why it worked was because of how I was educated. The Warriors jersey specifically, it's like that was the one thing where I stepped one foot on campus and I'm like, I'm working on this jersey no matter what. And I kind of just forced myself in there and really had to kind of prove to them why doing a town uniform made sense. They had already heard that people wanted it and they were aware of it, but it was like, okay, well, how do you do it? You just don't want to slap it on there and just make it feel like, someone who's not from the Bay made it and make it cheesy, especially something like as cool as like the town, because it's not a very like commercial name for Oakland. But with all of the growing up I did, playing sports in Oakland, the oak tree was everywhere. It's on the street signs, it's on the garbage cans, it's at all the parks. And, that was one symbol that I felt like represented Oakland. And so we tried to, push that as kind of the core identifier, and then kind of just like got out of its way. It's very simple, but the meaning behind it like really kind of hit a chord. And that's where it's like sometimes in design, you kind of just have to like get out of the way and let the idea breathe versus like, putting sparkles on it and, just adding elements that don't make sense. So yeah, that was great. And then like looking back, like I fought hard, like, I got in tons of arguments, got in trouble all the time because it was just like, it was worth fighting for. And it was like, no one knew better than me. Like even the people at the Warriors, like nobody was from Oakland. So there wasn't a lot of people that could kind of like justify not doing what we were trying to push. And then all the other jerseys were, really just kind of low hanging fruit for me. It's like, I've lived in New York, I lived in Philly, J.R. Ryder played for the Timberwolves. So I was real familiar with that franchise. And kind of helped guide a lot of the city edition uniforms that were happening for every team. So, those were all kind of built on that like authentic thread of the city and getting behind real stories from the community. So that was fun. And
well, I would say that, man, I'm really glad personally that you fought hard to get those jerseys done. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who were just thinking this is long overdue. And I must say that you did it right. The town jersey, in my opinion, is one of the best jerseys ever made. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the meeting with us. I truly do believe that, you know, it's up there with the best. Those of you who just may have been tuning in, yeah, like this guy really created that jersey. Like he really made the design on it. Come on, like that like for you, for me, for anybody, like that would have to be like one of the greatest accomplishments, man, because that it's crazy just to see that jersey on like Steph Curry, on all the players on the court. How is that? Seeing Curry, you know, shooting a basket with your design on, like, wow.
No, it's honestly, it's surreal. And, you know, I was saying to you guys earlier, it's like, it never gets old seeing something that you thought of in your head on another human being, and something of that scale, because it's like, I went to the first game. So it was like on the court, it was in the merch stands. It was like, you know, projected onto walls. Like it was cool. And it was something that I couldn't explain, especially in the moment. I had no idea really what was happening. And honestly, it's like I fought so hard for it that, not that I gave up on it, but I kind of just like, it's like, you know, after a boxing match, you're just like, okay, I gotta detach myself from what all the training and everything you did and kind of like turn the page, because you're so emotionally attached. And, you know, it was a year later that it all kind of came out, and it was, you know, the inaugural season of the Nike jersey. So there was so much hoopla going around for not just the Warriors, but every team. You know, we were in a title run, and I believe that was a 73 win season that we ended up losing. And I was like, oh man, it would have been so dope if they won it in the jerseys. Random fact, I actually made the championship t-shirts for the Cavs. So it's like, you know, you got to make both. So if like, depending on who wins, and I was like, I'm not making this shit for them. Like
that had to hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it was bittersweet, but it was like one of those things where it's like we lost, and I was like, oh my God, they're wearing my t-shirt too. So, you know, that was self-serving, but
you know, just you know, this is sort of a taste of like the influence that apparel can take. You know, seeing Somo so excited, you know, because in Somo he played a lot of basketball in high school. He was a playground bully back in the high school John F. Kennedy days. So it's like, you know, it's one of those things that him being a sort of a super fan and just seeing that logo, you know, it means like I'm a basketball fan, but not nearly as big as Somo. But once I see that town for some reason, even though, you know, I'm from Richmond, but I know it represents more than that. You know, like it's just, it represents more than that. And I think you said it perfectly, where you didn't touch the design, and that kind of speaks. It's like it speaks for itself. So kudos on that, man. So I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words, to be honest, because that's one of those things, like Somo said, that it just doesn't happen to people, you know, like, and now we're talking to the person that actually made it.
Yeah. No, but I think that's the amazing thing about, you know, some of the people behind the design that you never hear about, right? It's like that this story wasn't told when the jersey came out, for good or for bad. But it did come from an authentic place, you know, like the jersey you're wearing, the Barcelona kit. It's like a friend of mine designs those, and he's a diehard soccer fan as I am a basketball fan. And it's like the amount of pride that he takes into like creating those stripes and doing a million different versions till you get the right one, and picking the color palette and having these stories like these are the stories where I feel like should be promoted way more, because, you know, I'm around a million talented people all the time, and they're not the people that you see on Instagram with, you know, 500,000 followers, or that are doing collaborations with these brands. You know, these are the people that like have formal training, have like done the dirty work, have, you know, intern for free. Like there's so many people at Nike, at agencies, wherever, that are doing this design work. And I think that, a lot of the kids today kind of see, Virgil Abloh or a lot of these big name designers, Kanye, like, who else are they calling designer? Rihanna. Like there's all these celebrities that are sponsors versus like design. Virgil's a little different because he is a designer, but there's a lot more people that aren't actual designers that are accredited as designers, so, my goal in, the next stage of my career is really kind of giving these people platforms to showcase their work. For my brand Trophy Hunting, we put everyone's name who produces the work. So if you're the photographer, like we'll tag the photographer. If you created the graphic, then we'll, make sure that we tag you and give you the credit because you made this. And there's, of course, there's a million people that are part of these executions, but sometimes it's just like, you wake up and you dream an idea and that comes to fruition, and there's nothing cooler than seeing it on somebody, and you want people to know that you did it, or like that's your skill, or like you have that vision, because it is a different craft, and it's, it's kind of a thankless job sometimes. They kind of just like give you shut up money, and don't get me wrong, I've taken a lot of good shut up money, but not anymore. Like I'm not part of that game anymore. It's like, people could pretend that they're behind the design or not, but I know that any project that I'm part of now, I'm like, the people will get the credit, and it helps them, graduate from that project to the next project without having to like, show your portfolio that people don't even look at anymore. So
yeah, so you guys are kind of like the offensive linemen of the fashion industry. They're in the trenches, they do most of the work, and the quarterback gets all the glory.
Pretty much, and it's the one thing that I love about sports is that, especially professional sports, is how serious everyone takes it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're the 12th man on the Bulls, it's like you go every day, you're part of the team. And, in Little League, you're just like, oh, I don't care, I'm not going to the final pizza party. But, when you're a pro in any field, it's like, if you take it seriously, you get the rewards. And I think, some are personal where, you feel like you're part of a team and then you graduate to being the star. But I don't know, a little different with sports. In fashion, it's just like there's not a lot of jobs out there where you're the face, unless you do it yourself. So that's kind of my route, where it's like, not that I'm trying to be famous or anything. It's really just like, I get more work if people know the previous work that I've done, and part of it is promoting that. And that's kind of like, I'm not Gary V, but it's
shout out Gary V.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult now than before, because you used to be able to let your work speak for itself, and now that's not 100% true, because the people that are taking my jobs don't even do what I do. Like they're just popular. So
yeah, it kind of piggyback off a little bit of what you said, how so much work, so many people work on a project before it comes to the, to the sales, to being available. There's just so many people, just like with moving forward in our projects, there's a team of people who help us get this done. It's not just the people you see, on the podcast, but like, there's just so many steps it takes before somebody is laying out their wardrobe for the first day of school and picking out their right, hat, or their perfect t-shirt, their trophy hunting hoodie, laying it out on the bed, getting ready for that first day. There's like so many steps that come in before then. And so let's talk a little bit about the team and how important that is, because right now I feel like every day there's so many people coming out with a brand, a t-shirt brand, or some clothing brand. And sometimes they may be wondering, like, why is it not just popping off like they hope it would? Or why is it not just massively successful immediately? there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make something successful. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to that rule, but what really, in your experience, helps get to that point? How much of that team experience really is important?
It's everything, it's like, and part of my education in all of this is learning the hard way. It's like, you want to learn something real quick, try to do it by yourself. You figure out the holes. It's like, I don't want to like drop stuff off at the post office to be shipped, like I will, but then it's like, you start to realize like, okay, well, that stuff's taking away time from my value. And so like, I'm not doing a service to my own company by shipping boxes, because I should be on the creative side. And people that are really good with, running a business and operations and making sure that people are staying on a calendar, and it's like producers, it's the same thing. It's like you need all of these people so that people can excel to the maximum ability. And what I'll say to everyone that, like you said, has a brand or sells, quote unquote merch, is that when you decide to sell something online in an open marketplace nowadays, you're basically competing with everyone. So that includes Nike, that includes Apple, that includes Louis Vuitton, that includes free stuff that you get for, getting season tickets to the A's. Like, to put, it's real estate. So it's like to put your product on someone's back for them to spend their hard-earned money, you better have a really good reason why they should. And I think my experience has told me that, don't take anyone's money for granted or anyone's support for granted, because, I'm a consumer too. And I think that's how I learned, was by being a consumer, and what drives me to purchase things, what drives me to save things, what drives me to like keep shopping with brands. And, I'm, like I said, I'm using all of this information for my new company as like consumer experience. And that's a totally different skill than, what Puma wants me to do, which is, like tell a story about, the first Black barnstorming basketball team in the early 1900s, where it's just like all design, because they have their own team. So I've learned the hard way. I don't recommend it, but you do, with age comes experience, and a lot of times things could be avoided. But for me, it's kind of like the only way I learn really well is by trial and error. But there's a lot of steps that you can kind of skip if you really have like a team. And finding the team is the hardest part. It's like, these companies that go from 10 million to 100 million and getting all this VC dollars, like they're really in the company building, team building business. Even at Nike, it's like all the directors, it's like they're people managers. Like you have to understand like how to keep people motivated and be true leaders. And I think that's a skill where I fight a lot, because it's like I like getting my hands dirty and doing a lot. So, I created my own world for that. But it took seeing it from all angles to really kind of understand that and appreciate it.
So what would you say is the brand identity for Trophy Hunter, your own brand? Like, what do you want people to know when they're purchasing your products? Well,
trophy hunting, as just the act of it, is all about the hunt. So it's like the brand really is all about the process being the trophy. So working on these jobs, like doing these things, like being in the moment, is what we're about. It's not the victory parade. It's not, the NCAA championship. It's really like the grind. And it's just like, we're representing the grind and people who are kind of movers and shakers, in our industry, in the sports industry. So, we make a lot of our clothing is kind of very like classic and preppy, kind of, school education, travel, like all of the things that you kind of do as a young professional, like trying to kind of chase your dreams. So, you know, I think a lot of people get caught up in the goal. Like me, my goal was like working at Nike, but I didn't realize like while I was trying to get there was the fun part. You know, it's like once I got there, it's like not that it was a letdown, but it was kind of like, oh wow, okay, well, what's next? And you know, these are conversations that my partner and my friends, like we have all the time, because you know we've done a lot of really cool things in our professional careers, even like athletes. And then it's just like, okay, well, you made it to the NBA, now what? You know, okay, you won your first championship, now what? So you know, Nipsey Hussle calls it the
marathon.
The marathon continues, and that's kind of like, you know, very similar. It's like, you know, we're here to build and kind of bring people along. But yeah, the clothing's cool. It's definitely a different take on sportswear, and it's fun. It's unfiltered, and we're doing a lot more. Like we wish we could do more, but that's another one of those things. As a small brand, you kind of gotta slow walk it and figure it out on the way. So I'm having fun doing it.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Hearing that, it gives me goosebumps about how you were dreaming to get to Nike, and then once you got there, you realized that the process of getting there has been the dream the entire time. Like that right there, to me, is just so powerful. And part of it is kind of like stopping and smelling the roses sometimes, you know, in the process, because it can get lonely at the top, I'm sure, especially working with all these big brands and stuff. But that brings up a question that I wanted to ask, and that is, what is your biggest maybe regret or mistake that you may have made in your journey of design, or something that you wish like maybe I shouldn't have put out this design, or maybe I would have done this a little different?
I think the hardest part for what I do is saying something's done, because you know a lot of the design work is the R&D, the research, the discovery. Like you learn so much about whatever the subject matter is, so you have like a million ideas. So you really kind of filter through that. So it's like something that may like look simple and look like it took 5 seconds to do. You really basically got rid of all the other bad options to get to that. So that's part of the process. So I think a lot of the things that I regret are over designing, where it's just like I didn't know when to stop. And I've studied the greats, and a lot of people have rules, and you know a lot of them are kind of built on being classic and not being trendy. And I think that's the difference when I kind of go between like fashion, where it's like, oh, trend is really a part of this, but like how do you remain like classic so that you could wear this in 20 years? And it's like, because my style really hasn't evolved. Like if I scoot this way, it's like you can see basketball sneakers and t-shirts, hoodies, very simple, classic. Like I'm very preppy. So yeah. And I think that's why, with trophy hunting, it's really trying to make it utilitarian. And it's just like, we're not trying to make fast fashion where you just throw it away and you get a new one. It's really like, okay, well, how do you build stuff that actually has meaning, and you'll want to hang on for the next 10, 20 years, or, pass it on to someone else. So.
Yeah, definitely. Trophy hunting definitely has that vibe from what I'm seeing from it. Really classic look, a little preppy and sporty, kind of intertwined for sure. So now we talked a little bit about maybe what would be your biggest mistake, but what would be your biggest accomplishment? We talked a little bit about the Nike collaboration and then the Warriors design, but is there anything else that you're just like super proud of?
That's easily my number one. I think having a brand that I started from nothing, Undercrown was amazing. It was a ride that I'll never forget. But like nothing really tops the town jersey. The amount of, because it was real, it was really about getting to that seat and being able to have a voice that allowed me to do it. Like not that anyone could have designed that, because I felt like I'm the one that needed to be in that seat to be able to have those conversations and fight those fights. But it was really my upbringing in my career and the path that I took that allowed me to fight those fights and be prepared.
Like thinking about that, I'm just imagining it, and I'm imagining you in there with like your hoodie and your hat on in a boardroom with like a bunch of people in suits. I don't know if that's how it was, but and you're trying to convince these guys in suits like this is what needs to happen, and like some of them may be out of touch with what's really going on.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's like I think you and I love, I've lived on the East Coast for the better part of the last 20 years, and the Bay is with me all the time, and it's just like I love your guys' podcast and like the things that you're doing, because it's representing a community that I feel have my same values. And it's just like, we are undervalued and underappreciated, especially when you're from the East Bay. It's like,
oh yeah,
I never went to San Francisco ever. It was like a fortress over there that you couldn't get through. Like I remember going to San Francisco as many times as I went to LA as a kid, just never went over there, because we had our own shit. And I just feel like, having that upbringing and the hustle has kind of prepared me for whatever. So,
and it's kind of funny that you say that, because if you're not from the Bay, a lot of people just think it's San Francisco, when a lot of it, that's sort of like the saturated kind of commercial Bay portion.
Yeah.
But then you hit the East Bay, and it's like it's a culture shock for a lot of people, because it's just so diverse, and you can literally walk 2 blocks this way and you'll be in Chinatown, and it'll be 2 blocks the other way, it'll be something completely different. Or it may still be Chinatown, but just like a completely different vibe. So I'm glad you pointed that out for everybody that's from the East Coast. You're missing out if you don't come out to the East Bay, or just
no. But people know. But that's the funniest thing is like when I moved to Philly, right from Oakland, it was very similar, and the people that had been to Oakland understood what I was talking about. And I think like when we talk about like, my Nike experience and those boardrooms, it was really like, oh wow, like I have such a diverse experience that I didn't realize I had, even at that stage where it's like you're around so many people, whether they, live in San Francisco or just moved to the Bay in, the late 2000s. It's like, that's not where I came from, and it's not the diversity that I saw. So, having this platform to be able to use what I grew up in has been such an asset that I didn't even realize, because, every Warrior, it's like, oh, Clay loves Oakland, Steph loves Oakland, Draymond loves Oakland, KD loves Oakland. Like all the old We Believe guys, Matt Barnes, Baron Davis, like all these guys love Oakland, and it's separate from San Francisco. And not taking away anything from San Francisco, because like it's a bigger city and it just has different diversities, but it wasn't this like
a different vibe,
underdog. Yeah. It's like, we just felt so unappreciative. And like when you move to the East Coast, as soon as you say you're from California, people think LA. And then you say from the Bay, and then they think San Francisco, and you're like, damn, we can't even get to like where I'm actually from. So
like I feel obligated myself, and I know I've met a lot of people from Oakland or from the East Bay that feel so obligated to like represent, like I'm from here, this is where I'm from, like I'm from
everywhere
Richmond.
You go,
yeah,
there's like 4 or 5 places where I hear people just shout out all the time. It's like the Bay, Brooklyn, Philly, Detroit, like all of these places that are very similar in cultures. It's like, it's very like down to earth and like, of the people. And it's like a common bond across, especially in like sports and hip hop entertainment culture. It's like, oh yeah, going to Atlanta, like it's kind of the same thing, So
the Bay is super talented and filled with super talented people. And I feel like even in like the hip hop industry and stuff, never really got the true respect that it deserved. I mean, more recently you have like E40, but he's been around like so long, and it took him so long to even get as much recognition as he is now. And there's just so many other artists from the Bay that just, or from Oakland, from East Bay, that just never got that recognition, or he took so long to get it.
But, or you got to leave. And that's the thing. It's like
a
lot of people have to leave, and it's just like, how do you give back? And that's something that I've kind of struggled with on like, man, like I represent the Bay pretty hard, and, I rep it more than I'm there. And when I go back, it's weird because it's like, man, it's so different, it's just a different community. It feels like a lot. And, I'm always just trying to kind of find people in all the different places that I go. It's like, oh, you're from the Bay too. Like, where'd you go to school? And, like you find them, they're everywhere. And it's just like, they're always repping. So it's like, you wear your A's hat. Like I could walk down the street right now and someone will recognize it and we'll have a conversation about, how they're an A's fan or whatnot. So it's cool. It's like it's a fraternity.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Speaking of that and how to get involved in like more in your community, like what's one thing, say if somebody comes across this video, gets to the 50-minute mark and wants to know the do's and the don'ts when it comes into getting into the fashion industry, what are some hardcore advice that you can give to a young Dustin? What would this Dustin tell the young Dustin to sort of help you out?
My biggest advice to myself, and this is what I tell even like my nephews or younger people that are trying to do anything, is that the work starts when you don't want to do it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that came very natural to me, especially like in sports or in creativity. It just came natural. And if I didn't push myself, like if I didn't go to CCAC or work at the companies that I work for and did a lot of stuff that I didn't want to do, I wouldn't have gotten to where I'm at. So I think part of it is kind of like, once you figure out number one, how you learn, like what's the best way that you learn, and kind of put yourself in a position to envision what you want to do and reverse engineer it. And then it's like, I could reverse engineer my career in my head right now. And it's just like, oh, okay, I'm here doing everything on my own, but it took me packing 2 duffel bags and moving to Philadelphia with nowhere to sleep and having a job that was waiting for me on a Monday. And, I kind of took that risk, and that's what forced me to kind of learn all of those skills, but it gave me a foundation. And then, leaving there and going to other places and starting a company and then going to Nike, like all of those things helped me find my true happiness. So I would say, figure out how you learn, envision what you want to do, but don't be afraid to wander around, but really exhaust every opportunity you have. Like hit up people like me or people that you see doing it and just ask them. And if they're real, they'll tell you the real. But, a lot of people are just like, they don't really care about the processes as much as I do, because it's like, there's a lot of people doing, even that work at Nike, that, skipped a lot of the processes. And you can tell, at least from the work or, the work ethic or the ability to be on their teams. So,
speaking of true happiness, Dustin, we have sort of a surprise, I think, for you and for mostly for our viewers. And so, did you want to go ahead and hit up with some details real quick?
Yeah. So, as a small thank you for our viewers and for Dustin for coming back on the show and, not just saying you guys screwed up and I'm out. We do appreciate that. What I did is I ordered this hat right here. And I must say, this is a nice hat. It's corduroy,
Nice
Trophy Hunting. This is the brand we were talking about. This is Dustin's brand. And it's a hat, so it's adjustable because we wanted to get something that somebody could actually wear and would fit them. We're going to give this hat away. All right, let me keep this on screen because it deserves a little more camera time. So what we're going to do is the next person in the comments that comments and tells us, I want that hat, be their hat, right? And this is just a small token of our appreciation for the viewers sticking with us, even though sometimes it gets a little bit rough. We're doing our best. Trust me, we put a lot of energy and time and thought into this. It's not like we're just throwing this together. And also for Dustin for his time, a small token of our appreciation. So first person that says, I want that hat is yours. And we'll make sure we mail it to you.
Leslie, you are eliminated from the competition, Leslie.
Look at that.
No, but there she goes. This should be one of the first ones. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that.
And so I must say there are a few pieces on there that are my favorite. And I had to tell Dustin since we got him on here. There's these plaid basketball shorts, man. Those are fire. And then there's the rest in peace, like to the Roracle t-shirt. That's super clean. Those are a couple of my favorite pieces on there. And then there's the ones with like the luggage on there. All of those are really fresh. All right, so I'm looking at the comments. Someone said they want it. Leslie was the first one, but we're going to give Leslie a different price because she's the producer of the show. So it's kind of unfair for her to claim it. But we got Marco Huerta says, I want the hat. We're going to hook him up with the hat. And we want to just really quick say, appreciate you. Thank you for everyone commenting. So Kerry Williams says, I want the hat on D's head. He wants the A's hat.
Oh, man.
I don't know. That is a great hat, I must say. Go A's. So yeah, that's just a small token. Thank you.
No, definitely take care of you guys. I'll double down on that and send you guys a little care package too, because I do appreciate the work that you guys are doing. You guys are on the ground, making it happen. Mm-hmm. And I never thought that I never envisioned this part of what I'm doing now, and I'm trying to do more of it and pay it forward, because it's like I have fun, and I don't think a lot of people really enjoy the work that they do or how they spend their days as much as I do. So it's like it's something I try to spread. I had a brother who got into design and was really kind of a product of me living my dream. So it's like if he could do it, and anyone could do it, because it's really kind of seeing it in real life. And I came from the same places that everyone in the Bay came from, and went to a public high school and played sports and bought sneakers, and I've sat with Tinker. It's stuff that like people don't really
Wow, I didn't know that part. You should have told us that at the beginning, that you sat with Tinker and worked with Tinker, because man, that's
there's so many other people, and like he's like a legend at Nike, but there's so many other people. I work with so many people who are so talented and skilled, and you'll never know them, unless they have opportunities. And trophy hunting will definitely like showcase a lot of these people, but there's a lot of talented people out there, and it's like whatever industry you want to work in, there's a job there that there's every job at Nike is not just design. So you can work as IT person, or shit, they got a cafeteria. So it's like
Right.
you literally
Yeah.
could do anything.
You know, kind of piggyback off of that, and like loving what you do and doing what you love for a living is like, that's crazy, right? But just growing up in Richmond, for those of you who are viewing who may not know, you know, it's kind of like the trenches sometimes, right? And so
We
growing
had our
up,
bus
you know,
robbed in high school every single
yeah,
year at Richmond and JFK.
yeah,
Always.
I
Never
don't, I
leave
don't
anything
doubt
in the
it.
bus.
It
John F.
wasn't me.
Kennedy.
It wasn't me,
Wasn't
right?
us.
But you know, going to Kennedy, I will tell you that, in my opinion, the most talented basketball player that went to our school, who was doing all kinds of crazy stuff during games, could do like through your leg dunks, catching alley oops and everything, right? He
Pierre.
was the best player in our school, right? And because life happens and whatever else, he didn't make it. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and I feel like that's the case for a lot of people. Like sometimes the most talented people, someone even more talented than Dustin is out there, who may have just chosen a couple of wrong decisions and end up going down the wrong path, when maybe something like this could just light that fire in somebody to give them the inspiration to say, you know what, I can too, I can do it. And I feel like that knowing that there's people out there that have done it, that may have paved the way, or just give you that little bit of hope to know it's possible, and I don't got to just do this one thing. I don't have to, you know, be a lawyer or a doctor. There's plenty of other things that I like to do that I can do, you know, and just pursue it. And so I think that's really, to me, what this particular episode is really all about. And it's making sure that people know that they can. And that's what it's about. And the whole Never Stop Dreaming title is about that, and making sure that, you know, representation matters. And so like Dustin, someone from the Bay, someone from the East Bay, to be more exact, is here saying like, look. So those of you who are designers, who are maybe grinding it out there, that want to do and get to where Dustin is at, keep going. And hopefully this was a reminder, or at least some inspiration for you. Because for me, even though I'm not a designer, it's still like inspirational to me.
Yeah, I think the title of the episode was warranted. I think it exudes, you know, your passion exudes through the words, through how you say things, Dustin. I feel it, man. You make me want to run through a brick wall. I'm ready to go, you know. But exactly. But with that being said, ironically, we're coming to the end of the show.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, we like to give our shout outs. But then we also do like to give more information about stuff that's going on moving forward. And Somo usually has all those deets. And Somo, did you want to tell the people what we got going on this weekend?
Yes. Thank you, Jay. We have our monthly community cleanup. They are held every second Saturday. This one's going to be on the eastern span of the Richmond Greenway, which is located across from the grocery outlet on San Pablo Avenue. If you follow Moving Forward 510, you can get all the details there. Come on out. It's a community cleanup. This is basically a park greenway that we're going to be cleaning up so that people from the community can enjoy this space. We know a lot of times it gets trashed, and we want to make sure that, especially now during this pandemic and COVID times, that people have outdoor spaces that they can use, that they actually want to use. You know, it's hard to get inspired to go out if it's trash. So this is what we're doing to try and help the cause. So come on out. And those of you who do come out, 10 a.m., we're going to have coffee and donuts. So you're going to get a little inspiration there, get you going. And of course, we're going to do it safely, safe social distancing, all that, wear your masks and all that stuff. And hope to see you there.
All right. Do you have any shout outs that you want to say?
Yeah, most definitely. Shout out to Leslie, because this is the Zoom went by without a hitch. It went by really clear. So you definitely killed it on that. Dustin, for your time, for your words of wisdom and motivation. I know I personally identify a lot with what you said when it comes to like maybe people don't enjoy their 9-to-5 jobs, but there's other aspects that bring you lots of joy and happiness. For me personally, I don't love my 9-to-5, right? But I do it because it pays the bills, but I'm so fortunate to have moving forward because that's something I love, you know, the same way
Exactly.
you love graphic design. It really shows. You can talk about it for days and the passion really shows. And I think everyone in this team shares that same bond and passion for it. So, I mean, that was just nice to hear your words about that. So definitely appreciate
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you aren't your job, you know. It's like you as a person isn't your job, and I think that's the thing. It's like it for me, it ended up getting as close as possible, but you know, I'm still not my job. You know, I have my interests, and I do this because I love it. But you know, it's definitely taken a long time to figure out, you know, kind of what keeps me going, and it's great. I'm glad we're able to have this conversation. I hope people hit me up anytime. Like if you want some real feedback or information, like I'm always open to kind of help.
Dope.
You know, it's the pros. So it's like there's no sugarcoating that you'll get from this direction. But I think that was the type of advice that I needed to hear when I was, you know, coming up, making bad decisions.
Perfect. So we'll have your information, Dustin. Obviously, we shared it through our social media, but we'll have it in the description just in case someone stumbles across the episode and wants to know more about your life and possibly get that advice that you're offering. I want to give a shout out to Leslie. Thank you, Leslie, so much for holding it down in such short notice. You had to learn the Zoom process fairly quickly. And I also want to shout out D Money's plants in the background. They're looking really prosperous. They're looking nice.
Looking good.
It's not even like an eighth of.
Oh, we know. But you know, most of all, I want to give a shout out to Dustin. Dustin, let's give you the spotlight, star of the night. Any shout outs that you want to give out? You have a few fans over here, though. You have Elena Gomez and Carrie Williams that seem to tune in that tuned in to watch you.
Nice.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to them. Shout out to you guys. Like I appreciate you guys having me on. Like believe me, it wasn't a big deal to come back on. I'm glad we were able to kind of regroup and make it happen. So I'm here for the next one. I'm always doing good stuff around. So, you know, the more I do, I'll let you know. And, you know, it'd be good to hear what you guys have going on too. When I get out to the Bay, definitely meet in real life and get back to normal.
Yep.
Definitely. All right. So that concludes our episode for tonight, y'all. Once again, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're rejoining us, thank you so much for your continued support. Leslie, let's see if we can get that outro going on. And we'll catch you guys next episode. Peace.
Thank you.